Welcome to the E-commerce Profits Podcast, where we feature top founders and experts in the e-commerce industry and take an in-depth look at the struggles and successes in growing e-commerce brands profitably.
Hey guys, Josh Chin here. I'm the host of the E-commerce Profits Podcast, where we feature top experts and founders in the e-commerce industry, and we go behind the scenes of the struggles and successes in growing a brand. Now, this episode is brought to you by Kronos Agency. If you run a direct-to-consumer e-commerce brand that is ready to scale and to double your customer lifetime value through lifecycle marketing, Kronos is your company. We've helped hundreds of brands scale profits with email, SMS, and mobile push marketing while getting an average of 3,500% ROI from our efforts. We've worked with brands like Truly Beauty, Doudi, Elias Skin, and many more. The next step is to email us at sales@kronos.agency, or you can go to kronos.agency to learn more. Today's guest is the CEO and founder of Modo25 and Bosco, based in Leeds, UK. His name is John Reedman. John is a veteran in the e-commerce space. I would say you've been in the game for quite a bit of time now. And Bosco is one that is a software that helps retailers make more money through digital marketing. And it enables retailers to optimize their marketing spend. And if you're experiencing some chaos in your marketing department between multiple channels and multiple SKUs and multiple products, and you don't exactly know how to attribute your success and how to maximize your ad spend and your marketing spend and marketing budget, Bosco is here to help. So I have tons of questions for John, especially when it comes to scaling product-based businesses. One of the biggest problems that we face is in attribution. And attribution is one of those problems that is not exactly a problem to fix, but a problem to kind of work with as you scale. It's always going to be there. And so, John, welcome to the show. We have some really interesting insights to kind of talk about here.
Well, thank you for having me, Joshua. Yeah, I'm looking forward to getting stuck into some of the questions you've got. And you're absolutely right. Attribution is just an ongoing challenge for anybody selling online. And it's one of the, and I think the biggest challenge there is there isn't a right answer. And that's the bit that people struggle with. There isn't one silver bullet. So, but yeah, absolutely right. I'm looking forward to getting stuck into the questions. And thank you for having me and describing me as a veteran. So I don't know if that's does that mean I'm wise and experienced, or does that just mean I'm old? But thank you very much.
Wisdom comes with age, and wisdom is irrespective of age, I believe. But I think that you have a really unique experience in terms of the type of clients and the type of brands that you've had worked with, consulted with, and experienced with between ASOS, Pepsi, BMW, Superdry. I think you've been through the whole gamut of the retail industry. In the space that we operate in, and a lot of the clients that we work with at Kronos, a lot of our brands are startups and scale ups. So a lot of fast growth, hyper growth, and a lot of things breaking down. One of which being attribution. A typical kind of life cycle that a company would go through goes from one product, one channel, to multiple product, one channel, multiple products and multiple channel. My question for you is at what point do you start thinking about multi-touch attribution and aggregating attribution across the different channels that you're advertising on?
I think there's arguably, again, this is a bit of a cop-out, but there isn't one answer to fit that. It depends. I suppose a lot of startups start off in social media, and they'll start doing some social media or search, and they'll have some initial success immediately, and then they keep repeating that success. And fundamentally, the question I often ask, say, a scale-up or a startup growing business is, once you prove your website can trade, so I mean, once you prove your website can sell and convert a potential customer lands on the site, and you've proved you can convert that into a paying customer, once you prove that, you should really start exploring, well, where are my customers hanging out? Where are they out there? and how can I get them from where they're hanging out onto my website? And understanding, I suppose, as part of that, where they may be in the sort of purchase funnel. So where are they? Are they in research, or are they actually at sort of consideration, or are they actually at sort of the bottom of the funnel and conversion? And search is very good at the lower end of the funnel, right? So someone searching for a specific widget that you make, and you sell that widget, boom, right? The time might be quicker. Paid social, I think, is now more, as well as being a product sales channel, it could also be a display branding channel. And then I suppose it's other things which I think a lot of startups and scale-ups are scared of sometimes, is where does affiliate marketing fit in? And also where does like display or video, or even potentially out of home or TV or all these other things, where does that fit in? And I think because people sometimes struggle to prove the last click wins or that click drove that revenue, they really find it difficult to get the head around, well, why would I invest in that when I can keep spending pounds here? And I suppose what a good conversation around attribution would do is link the incrementality of those channels. And I think that's really what people need to get their head around is, well, if I do this on Facebook, it will also not only drive impressions and visits from Facebook, it might also increase search, right? And I also think it's a risky strategy for a brand to have just a one channel, right? I saw many companies struggle when iOS 14 update came along, and their primary channel was Facebook. Right. Yeah. And it was like, what's happening? What's going on? The algorithms getting affected. And what really happened was a lot of people panicked and came out. So the algorithm didn't have as much data to learn from. Those people that stayed in saw a drop off in their performance as well. And fundamentally, the way the algorithm had been working was using data that was no longer available to it. So Facebook still had eyeballs and still had people using it, but the way in which their advertising algorithm worked, it couldn't work in the same way. So I think they're sorting that out, and you've got to change your Facebook strategy. But to answer your question specifically, I would say as soon as you can prove that your website can convert and trade, you should look at all the different potential traffic sources and then understand, well, where do they, and maybe map them out. We'll get a big flip chart, a big whiteboard, and map out, right, which channel works at which area of the funnel, and then understand, right, what have I tested? What do I willing to test? And I suppose also where it might be different for your personas of customers, right? So certain channels work better for certain age groups or certain demographics. But yeah, so I would say earlier rather than later, and try and avoid being addicted to just one channel. But it's very easy, Joshua, when it's working and you're putting, I don't know, a few $1,000s into Facebook every month and out comes 10 times that. It's very easy just to keep putting the money in and not testing and learning. So
exactly, but what I've come to experience over the years is that it's not many years, right? It's just a couple of years. At the beginning of the kind of Shopify boom was when sort of where Facebook ads was super easy to run, where any amount of money that you put into Facebook was essentially giving you money and it's printing profits. And there's I suppose some sense of complacency that comes with an experience like that, and then taking that experience to like versus what we experience right now, where running ads on Facebook isn't as easy as what it used to be anymore, and we are forced to be a little bit more prudent with how we spend and how we optimize our allocation of a marketing budget. Now, I want to dive a little bit deeper into the planning stage of marketing, because that's, planning isn't necessarily a term that we necessarily think very deeply about at the small, medium-sized level businesses stage, wherein we're thinking about Facebook ads and Instagram, and we're optimizing for those channels. And I'm going to Google and I'm optimizing for Google, and I'm going to email and optimizing for Google, for email. And I'm not thinking about how it interacts with one another. And you talk a little bit about the halo effect across the channels as well. So what does success look like? What does the ideal look like for a well planned out marketing budget or set of budgets?
So I think, right. So I'm going to answer your question by saying that we shouldn't look at it that way. So I'm going to sort of challenge that a little bit. So I think
Sure.
what people need to understand to scale their business ultimately is what's their sort of customer acquisition cost, or what is their return on ad spend, or their cost of sale that they're willing to accept. So we often in the past have spoken to clients. In fact, I was talking to a client only yesterday, and he goes, "Oh, I've got $20,000 to spend." And I said, "Right, what's that?" He goes, "That's my budget for the next couple of months." And I said, "Right, okay, so I think that's the wrong way to look at it. Because I think actually a better way to look at it is if you're selling a product for, say, $100 and you're making $50 profit, all right? Of that $50 profit, how much are you willing to spend to make more $50? So let's say, are you actually willing to spend $10 to make 40, right? So you're willing to take 10 of that 50 and you're going to make 40 and you're going to keep spending 10, right? And are you willing to keep doing that? And I think often what happens as people scale up, it becomes harder, right? Because you're going to get more. There's this sort of normal distribution of demand versus supply, and it becomes more competitive. Also, your cost will probably increase a little bit because you might have to employ some people, and you might have to move into a bigger distribution or warehouse, or move from your garage and rent some property or whatever it is. So your cost in your business change. So understanding you're sort of fully loaded, what is the acceptable customer acquisition cost? And it may be, Joshua, if you've got a product that people need to keep buying, or there's a repeat purchase profile, that it's different for the first purchase, because you might decide, well, I'm going to break even or lose money on my first purchase because I know we're going to get 10 more purchases because of amazing email marketing or SMS marketing. We're going to keep all these people engaged and coming back. And actually, we can afford to lose money. So I think the best place to start is actually really deconstructing the costs in your business and the cost to sell the product, and then working out what are you willing to spend on marketing, and then what you can do to build a budget or build a plan is understand what's the demand for my product in those particular channels. So you can go into tools like the Google Keyword Planner or the Facebook Ad Manager, and you can see, well, based on my product, based on what my market and my audience is, I could probably spend this much. And then I should be able to get this much traffic. And then if you understand your conversion rate on your website, you can start building out and your average order values, you can start building out some sort of forecast. And again, this might all sound very complicated and maths-based, but I think it's really important to understand before you start spending money on Google or Facebook, right? What am I expecting to come out the other end of the sausage machine? Right. So we're going to put all this stuff in at one end. What's going to come out and how quickly? So I think if you understand your cost of acquisition, what you're willing to spend, understand your average order values and your conversion rates, then you can start building a marketing plan. But I'd start at the other end and work backwards. And I think often people go, I've got $5,000 to spend, or $10,000 or $20,000. I'm going to spend it on Facebook. And because they haven't really thought about all of this maths in the process, often they burned through their money really quickly and it didn't work. All right. Yep. And then they're a bit skeptical. They're a bit skeptical and they feel a bit, oh, why didn't that work? Or that's actually potentially not that bad because they'll learn a lot of mistakes. What could be work is they put it in and it did work. And it worked really well, but they don't know why it worked and they still don't understand their metrics. And they keep repeating. And then what will happen at some point, it will stop working and they'll be stuck in a channel potentially and they don't know their metrics. So they can't quickly pivot or move into a different channel. So I think the key thing is, just to summarize that, is we need to understand what are we willing to pay to acquire a customer? What is our average order value on our website, ultimately to calculate then the margin, but also then what's our conversion rate? And everybody gets obsessed, Joshua, with I want more traffic, I need more traffic, I need more clicks, I need more eyeballs on my product. And actually, people forget to optimize their conversion rates. And actually, if there's one key thing you could do, and you guys probably do it on your emails, it's right, we've got to get the open rate up, yeah, but we've also got to get the click-through rate, right? So there's two key metrics. It's not just one metric. once you get people on the website, is, well, how can we improve that conversion rate? If you can move that conversion rate by just a small percentage, it's going to have a significant impact on the business versus buying more traffic, which is normally most marketeers' answer. I need more traffic, I need more traffic, I need more traffic. Whereas actually, I think as part of the game, you also need to be thinking about, well, how can we improve conversion? So I went and answered a different question there, Joshua, rather than just focusing on the planning. But I do think people can put a budget together, but they really need to get on top of their metrics first.
No, it's really good. That gives me a lot of insights in terms of how to think about the idea of planning and where to begin. What are some of the things that larger retailers do really successfully that smaller brands may not be either thinking about or may not be doing all that well?
I'd first of all caveat that there's not necessarily an assumption that larger brands are doing things well. Right. Mm-hmm. So I do think a lot of larger companies do things well, but just because they're big doesn't mean they're necessarily better. I think often smaller brands that are scaling up are exceptional at their marketing, and also they're more open to trying new channels. Things that I do think larger brands do well, though, to answer your question, is they're very good with their data, and they're very good with, say, managing feeds or using. So if you're a brand and you've got 60,000 products, right, that is changing all the time, it's hugely complex and difficult to update all your ads or update. So in the middle of all this, there's very good, and this was a previous business I grew that used to specialize in this area. They will be employing some form of feed management tool. And again, what you really want to do is probably have a master feed from the back of Shopify, for instance, that then feeds into some sort of feed management. But the output you maybe need for Amazon, or the output you maybe need for TikTok or Facebook or your affiliate partners or Bing or Twitter or Instagram might all be different. And what a feed management tool will let you do is you just update it in one place. Then there's a series of rules, and then it updates everything everywhere else for you. And I think as you scale, the more platforms you're on, the more complex managing those platforms becomes. And then it sucks in all your time. And then you end up in a situation going, well, I'm not getting that many sales from that channel, I'll just leave it. And then you probably have out-of-date ads, out-of-date copy. And actually, that's worse than having nothing potentially, because it might put people off who then might have bought from a different channel. So having some sort of centralized feed management process and tool will help grow retailers wanting to grow and emulate what the big guys do. And I think within there's things around having rules around don't push anything to Facebook or Google Shopping if the actual retail price is less than $5, right? Because you could set rules in place. So rather than just a standard, take the feed, put it into Google Shopping, and everything goes in, you might want to have certain. And you might also, if the stock's below a certain number, don't put it in, right? Because we don't want to sell out. If we don't want to have no product, or it may also, some of the things that are funny often is people might merchandise and describe their products in a really creative way on their website.
Yeah,
particularly around colors or shapes or things. Yeah. But nobody searches like that. Nobody searches for an aqua, a lip-shaped whatever swimsuit, right? Yeah, they'll search for a green swimsuit, right?
Correct.
Right. So how do you modify what the description that comes in from the website? How do you then make that practical for search or for Google Shopping? So I suppose utilizing technology to enable you to operate at scale, but in particular sort of feed technology. And there's loads of really good feed companies out there. In fact, we work with the main one we work with is one called Productcaster. They've got something called Feed Manager. They're quite a cool business. In fact, all our guys use that when they're helping optimize performance for clients. So, but yeah, I'd say thinking about tools to save time, thinking about tools to help them make better decisions and crunch the data. Because if as you grow, as you know from email data, there's huge volumes of data, and just knowing where to spend your time and effort, it becomes the hard thing. And what a lot of scale up and startup businesses do is they often spend the time on the tasks they enjoy doing rather than necessarily on the tasks that are going to make them the most money. So they may really like doing Facebook ads or doing the creative or doing videos or doing unboxing, right? But they probably don't like keyword cleaning in Google AdWords, right? Or finding new audiences or uploading their CRM data to Google to find lookalike audiences because they don't necessarily enjoy that side of it. Yeah. So, so hopefully that answered the question.
That it does, and I do have a follow up to that. Now, with kind of latching onto that point in doing things that we enjoy versus doing things that's actually effective and productive. I suppose that one of the ways to get around that is to build a team that's that's better at what we do in terms of certain functions that we may not be able to serve ourselves. What are some ideal team structures that you've seen done really well by brands or retailers in the e-commerce and direct to consumer space?
Right. So this is so I'm a big advocate over time of trying to get as much knowledge within your team as possible, but at the same time getting expert consultants and software to help you, right? So it's a blend. And I think as you scale up, what you'll probably have is maybe a young helper, intern, grad, or somebody who's a bit of an all-rounder, right? So they really understand, maybe a specialist in one area, but can help with lots of different things, or maybe integrates and liaises with an agency that you've got maybe running your paid search or your paid social. And as you grow, I think what the people you need are really, I really do think people need to think about creative. And I think going forward, the winners, certainly on Facebook, are going to be ones where they're creative and their copy stand out. One thing that's happened, Joshua, in the last 10 years is because it's been so performance driven and it's money, click, money, click, money, click. Yep. There seems to be a lost art of writing good copy, right? And writing copy that converts and works, and building genuine ads that resonate with people and stop the scroll. Okay. So I think, and again, this isn't probably top on any of your listeners' list. They're probably not sat there going, oh, we need a creative copywriter, or we need to have access to a creative copywriter, or we need to have our own in-house ad designer who's amazing. They're probably thinking, I need an analyst or a mathematician to work out the numbers and the data, right? Hopefully they understand their own data enough that they don't need that right now. But I would really think about spending some time and effort on the messaging, understanding your personas, and then thinking about, well, how can we get some of that skill set in-house? I mean, this probably comes down to the same as subject lines, right? Subject lines in emails are going to determine whether or not that is open. Right? And that is an art in itself. You can probably employ somebody, you probably do employ people who are hugely creative at getting that message across in 4 words or 5 words. And I think that's a skill that some people don't think they need. So, and again, I suppose building the perfect team is a difficult question because it all depends on how big you are, how much money you've got, all those things. But I do think there's certain skill sets that you do need. And I'll just quick. One is someone who's responsible for paid marketing. So paid marketing would be PPC, paid social, affiliates, those sorts of disciplines. And then the other side, I think, is you'd probably need some tech SEO person who may sit and also look after e-commerce, but actually their part of their job is measured on keeping on top of the Google algorithm updates, the technical changes, making sure we've got no errors in our Google Search Console. It's amazing how many retailers we speak to who are on this scale-up journey. And you go, can we have access to your Google Search Console while we connect all our systems? And you go in and there's 500 errors that have been there for months. And you think, well, who's going in and checking what? And a lot of the time, they don't know they need to check. right? Because they did all this when they set the site up, and now they're just concentrating on chucking traffic in from paid sources, right? So I think somebody who owns the technical side of the site, and then arguably somebody like this creative content person who's going to own the content, both on-site content, but then content that can be linkable or be shared elsewhere to hopefully generate some links and everything else. And I think they're probably the three core areas to start with. But I also think they all need to report into the same person. I think where a lot of people get this wrong is you have e-commerce on one side, and they're responsible for the site and the platform. And then you have marketing on another side. And sometimes marketing has the budget, but e-commerce have the people doing the work.
Yeah.
Right? And marketing might be reporting into the CEO over here, and e-commerce might be reporting into a CTO or an IT director or somebody. And it's a really common mistake that the bigger companies make. And then you end up with this channel conflict internally, and actually you can't get things done or signed off or progress made because of people trying to protect their own team or protect their own agenda or protect their own job rather than doing what's right for the business. And we see this all the time because people think websites are an IT thing or an e-commerce thing, but actually it should be a marketing thing.
Conversions, conversion rates.
Yeah. So that's sort of a bit of my thoughts and insights. And I would say what we're trying to get to, if possible, is what we call this T-shaped marketer. So somebody who's got broad understanding and skills across all the different channels, but is probably a specialist in one. So they've got an understanding of all the digital channels, but they're a specialist in affiliates or they're a specialist in PPC or shopping. So, and I think over time, that will give you the opportunity to scale and the resilience as a business to cope with changes and things that are coming along.
That makes sense. It sounds like there are some key functions that software and external parties just cannot do. Creatives, copywriting. I resonate very strongly with the copywriting piece. I started out as a copywriter, and I've seen incredible success and impact on the outcome, especially when it comes to email marketing, by just writing better copy, spending a little bit more time on honing the craft. Makes a huge impact versus thinking about what's the next tool to use, the next software. It's not necessarily the right needle mover. And at Modo 25, you talk about in-housing, the idea of in-housing, an alternative to I suppose, the dichotomy between doing it in-house versus hiring an agency. What is that? What exactly is that? And what's
so Modo 25. So my concept of Modo 25 was, I think there's a point at which people get to where they're thinking, well, we're paying this agency to do this. So we're paying someone to do our Google shopping and our paid social. And actually, the cost I'm paying them, I could probably employ somebody, and we might have some more money to invest in media and budgets. And also, they might be able to do other stuff. And they might add value. They might be fun to have around the office, and they might add to the culture of the business. So my fundamental theory is, for certain levels of execution and campaign management, I believe they can be done in-house. So my background has been growing multiple different e-commerce based focused agencies supporting, as you said, some of the world's biggest retailers. And over time, we'd get these phone calls and they go, we're going to bring it in-house. And we would put the phone down and there'd be like this, everybody'd start crying and there'd be this like disastrous meeting about, oh, what are we going to do? Yeah. And then I thought, well, when I'm setting up my next business and I want to build this software to help predict the future around the dashboard within Bosco, but how are we going to still keep our hand in as practitioners? I'm like, well, could we not build a business that makes money out of helping people in-house? Right? Because the problem that actually happens is people go, I'm going to go in-house, and then it's chop, get rid of my agency, and then I've got to work it all out myself. Right? Yeah. But they don't know necessarily what technology they need. They don't know necessarily what good looks like. What they first of all have to do then is recruit someone from an agency to come and basically set up a mini agency within their business. So what we sort of do is we advise them on strategy of who do you need? What does your team look like? What processes do you need to put in place? We will then build out their ad platforms and systems and process to best practice. and then we will help them recruit. So we have a recruitment team that recruits people for our clients. We'll recruit them some people, we'll place people in, we'll train them up, and then over 6-12 months, we will hand it to them. But then we will use our software in the background to help them keep an eye on it and predict, well, actually, that's going really well, keep doing more of that. Oh, there needs to be some opportunity there. And our specialists will dive in on a monthly, quarterly basis and still do that sort of quarterly review of what's the market doing, what's happening in this channel, what's Google saying, what's Facebook saying. So you sort of get the benefit, you can get the benefit of the big agency, but without the massive retainer. And so far, a lot of brands and scale-up retailers have found that quite useful. So they sort of have a sort of like an agency help desk support without having to pay the big agency fees. And that comes with the predictive analytics and dashboarding software. Because that's the other thing people really struggle is they're looking in Facebook, they're looking in TikTok, or they're looking in Instagram or wherever, and there's multiple different dashboards they've got to look at all the time. It's very difficult to try and make decisions when you're also trying to run the business and put things in boxes, ship it out the door, and everything else. It's there's a lot going on for these scale-up businesses.
It's a lot. It's a lot, and the idea of bringing things in-house is, well, it's a pain that a lot of agencies face. We face that all the time as well. When you get that phone call and you go, all right, guess we're losing a client. I guess this idea, it's really interesting to me because from an agency's point of view, it allows for the agency to maintain that relationship and continue to add value and extend that relationship beyond what it would have been, and for the brand to have that support that they need to succeed anyways, versus, all right, I'm going to pack up in 2 months and here's everything that you got to do on your own now. And bye. Yes.
Well, I just thought that I'd rather have some recurring revenue from clients and have an open, friendly relationship and support them on their journey. And then what tends to happen is somebody might leave, right? And rather than what's happened before, we've seen is people take it in-house. And if they haven't had an in-house support in the background, it often fails because somebody leaves, right? And they can't find someone quick enough, and they go, "Oh, this is a nightmare. I'm going to outsource it to an agency again." And then they have this sort of yo-yo effect. In-house agency. What we're trying to do is give them some consistency and also help them retain that knowledge within their business. But people might leave, but then or someone goes on holiday and they can phone our guys up and go, right, can you jump in for a couple of weeks and just keep it on it? Yeah. And it's like a flexible concertina model.
It's seamless. And what are some of the success stories and case studies that you could share where this model has worked out really well? Yeah,
so some of them are with slightly bigger brands, but it was a brand called Cult Beauty. Then they came to us and they were trying to do, well, initially, one of their challenges, they were trying to understand digital performance across all different channels. So we used our Bosco tool to help them work out what were the different channels, understand attribution, understand the value of the first basket to customer lifetime value. So there was a whole sort of say, what was the combination of products that went in the first basket of the most valuable customer over the first 12 months? Right. So arguably, then, if we can bid more on those products, we know that those people who bought those products are going to buy more expensive products over time. That was quite an interesting data project to start with. And then what we started doing with them is we said, well, we need some better tools. You need some better tools. And they were at the time on Adobe, the former, what was it called? Efficient Frontier platform, which was like a bid management tool. So they were on that Adobe search tool. And we said, well, you probably need to move over to Google Search Ads 360. I hate always saying Google have got good things, and I'm always an advocate of trying to think a bit more independently. But in this scenario, Google Search Ads 360 is a very good tool. So we help them migrate to Search Ads 360. We managed the migration. We set them up with all their licenses, but then we also trained all their team. And started helping them recruit people within their team. So, and then sort of set what does best practice look like? Right? How can we help you do that? And then we ran it with them. Then we identified new channels. So we said, look, why aren't you doing anything significant in YouTube? Right? Why aren't you doing anything significant in TikTok? And they're like, oh, well, so we went away, investigated the data, put together a strategy and said, look, here's an opportunity here in a new channel. We then executed the channel for 3-6 months and then handed it back over to them. But all the time with our dashboard running in the background, helping them see what we're doing, but also see where the opportunities lie. And then more recently, they've now taken all the execution work in-house, but still use the dashboard and still have access to the insight on a quarterly and monthly review sort of basis. And they've grown their business significantly and at the same time reduced their ROAS. And I think that's
increase your ROAS.
Increase their ROAS.
Right.
Reduce the cost of sale. Sorry.
Yeah.
Reduce the cost of sale. And when you're selling, say, lipsticks or beauty products, that some of them are quite low value, some of them are very expensive, but being in control of that cost of sale is really important. So we help them increase not only new customers, but from multiple channels, but at the same time driving down the advertising cost. So that's a very recent example. And then we've got another example where we help people scale into other countries using both data, technology, and best practice. Because I think that's the other thing. Often people just get focused on what they know, rather than thinking, well, hang on, there's several 100 million people in America. Why can't I go sell them stuff in America from wherever I am in the world? And I think often, or I'm in America, and why can't I sell to the Far East, or why can't I sell to Europe? And I think people think it's a lot scarier and a lot harder than it is. But now with global logistics and with plugins and tools for Shopify, your pricing, your translation, your currencies, your taxes, and the hassle. 10 years ago, it was really hard. Now it's a lot easier and more accessible for any business to sell internationally. But yeah, no, that's sort of how some good case studies of how the in-housing business helps people. And we've now got grads who are employed by our clients, but they sit in our office. Right.
Fascinating.
So they're learning on the job, working on our clients' accounts, but also working on other clients. Because sometimes we'll be like, oh, we've got this really interesting thing we're doing on affiliates, or we've got this really interesting thing we're doing. You need to watch this. And it might not be their employer's account, but they're learning because whilst they're sat within the agency environment. So we're just trying to do things slightly differently, Joshua. And so far, so good.
Very interesting. And it makes a ton of sense. And you're accelerating growth and learning for people that are involved. And one of the biggest struggles for e-commerce, especially at the scaling stage and in the recent years, have been just hiring. So I think you're solving a massive issue here. John, what is the best way for people listening to contact you, get in touch, learn more about Bosco and what you do at Modo25?
So the best way would be to just email john@modo25.com or have a look at either of our websites. So it's modo25.com or Ask Bosco, askbosco.io, askbosco.io. You can have a look at the two different businesses there, or find me on LinkedIn. I'm just John Redman on LinkedIn, READMAN. And yeah, I'd love to. We do a special deal for scale-up startup businesses if they've been around less than 2 years and they can show that they're growing. If they want to have access to our knowledge, expertise, and technology, because we like to help people grow, and we like to go on that sort of growth journey and story. We're working with a really exciting sports fashion brand in the UK at the moment that we're just trying to help launch in America called Castor. They sponsor like Andy Murray. They also sponsor USA Rugby. They sponsor the Samoa rugby team and Rangers Football Club. So they're really emerging. They're trying to be like a luxury version of Nike or Under Armour, and they're really ambitious. So that's quite exciting. So we love working with fast growth, scale up businesses. But yeah, John at Modo25 is probably the easiest way to get in touch with me.
Awesome. John, this has been super insightful. Thank you so much for being on the show.
Thank you very much for having me, Joshua.
Thanks for listening to the E-Commerce Profits Podcast. We'll see you again next time, and be sure to click subscribe to get notified of future episodes.